No more Hogg.
The Hogg's been hogged?
No more Hogg.
Damn.
The Hogg has been hawked. He's been kicked out of the DNC.
You're telling me David Hogg has been hawked too?
David Hogg. They've hawked him too.
This is absurd.
But yeah, they, as we reported a while ago, as we reported firsthand source, of course.
Yeah.
David Hogg. They redid his election. They voted in favor of redoing the election that got David Hogg his vice chair position. And now the one person who maybe showed some promise, even not in a progressive way, but just some promise to try to revive this party, has been kicked out of his position, essentially. They're redoing the election, and he's choosing not to run again.
Genuinely, the rot consumes.
Yeah.
The rot within the DNC is so deep. That's actually insane. He's one of the most popular, like, progressive figures right now when it comes to this. Like, David Hogg is one of the only people within the party that's actually been able to, like, get attention and talk about how Democrats aren't doing anything in, like, a mainstream fashion.
And that's part of the problem from the perspective of establishment Democrats inside of the Democratic Party, is that he came in and he started getting attention for a cause that would work against their interests, but also just like he was the one with the focus on him.
Yeah.
Which should tell you that like he knows what he's doing, at least in part, if he's able to get attention in this way so quickly as like a vice chair.
Yeah, you found a guy that can stay in the news cycle, and now you decided to kick him out.
But the fact that he got so much attention is part of the reason they wanted to kick him out, not just because he was trying to like primary challenge establishment Democrats, but also because he was just able to get attention generally. And I say this because Ken Martin had something to say to David Hogg.
Ken Martin, the great leader of the DNC.
Yeah.
The man who was elected to save the organization after the massive loss of the 2024 election.
Mm-hmm.
Ken Martin's coming in to turn the Democrats around and help us start winning elections, right?
They chose Ken Martin over Ben Wickler, the guy who turned Wisconsin blue again after like a decade of Republican rule. And they chose him over a Bernie Sanders staffer, I believe, who had some pretty good ideas for the party, like wanted to take it in a more populist direction. But Ken Martin was chosen, famously the guy who said we'll take money from the good billionaires.
Yeah.
And he was not very happy with David Hogg. We have some leaked audio here that Hiddo obtained exclusively.
Of course, yeah, the inside mole.
No, that Politico reported on. And I figure we can just play it. It's about 1 minute and 50 seconds. There's no video to go along with it because apparently it was just a Zoom meeting that happened back in May. But some people might be saying, like, look, David Hogg, he wasn't kicked out. They just have to redo his election because of procedure issues. Even if you buy that, though, I think this audio reveals that he was being pressured to get out of the way because of his primary challenges that he wanted to do, but also because he was taking attention away from Ken Martin.
And I mean, nobody gave a shit about the procedural issues until David Hogg started opening his mouth, until he made the people in the party mad. And then functionally them choosing to redo the election is them choosing to vote David Hogg out. I wouldn't have reran either.
Yeah, and then Malcolm Kenyatta, the other guy who got elected alongside David Hogg, also got kicked out of his position just because of the procedural rule. I don't know if he's running again, but he wasn't the one causing a fuss anyhow. But I figure we listen to this audio and see what Ken Martin has to say about, getting the party to where it needs to be to defeat Donald Trump and Republicans.
Say, look, it has plenty of warts, and we're all trying to change those for sure. But the longer we continue this fight, the harder it is for us to actually do what we all want to do, which is make a difference in this country again. So I deeply respect you, David. I too was looking forward to working with you, but this has created a situation, and I'll be very honest with you, for the first time in my 100 days on this job, and Jessica knows this, the other night I said to myself for the first time, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Bitch made.
And partly not because of the stress and all the naysayers, right? I'm used to that. I've spent 14 years as a chair. I'm used to getting beat up on. But this is really everything, from this election, this credentials report, and how Malcolm's been treated in this, to, the fact the election itself, how Shasti and Gina were treated in this. I'm just quite frustrated to be in this position, because what you've done, whether you like it or not, or know it or not, David, is no one knows who the hell I am, right? I'm trying to get my sea legs underneath of me and actually develop any amount of credibility so I can go out there and raise the money and do the job I need to put ourselves in a position to win. And again, I don't think you intended this, but you essentially destroyed any chance I have to show the leadership that I need to. So it's really frustrating.
He starts crying. I think he started crying at the end there.
Democrats-
It sounded like he started crying.
Democrats don't elect the worst person possible for the job challenge. Impossible. The recent round of choosing who should lead, I don't know, important positions within the party has turned out to be an absolute disaster.
Fucking Hakeem Jeffries, Jerry Connolly, Ken Martin, every single time, dude.
All of them are awful.
Alyssa Slotkin's a rising star, according to Chuck Schumer.
I can't stand these people's political instincts. They're just, they fundamentally cannot meet the moment. And I think it's really funny that in that leaked audio, he starts talking about like, Malcolm was treated badly, these two women were treated badly, but me. Really, you've offended me and you've undermined my leadership. And how dare I be challenged when I come into one of the two major political parties in one of the biggest and most powerful countries in the world, and be challenged in what my ideas for leadership are, and be forced to actually take a stand on things and do things affirmatively rather than just sitting back and letting Trump do everything.
You can't expect to sit atop this massive party infrastructure and be able to do the job if you're this bitch made.
Yeah.
Like it's totally pathetic. There's no reason somebody this fucking weak should have a job in the DNC, let alone the top fucking position. It is just remarkably incompetent to put this guy in a position where he is damn near crying on a Zoom call because his subordinate, the person in the vice chair position, challenged him slightly.
Like me when I crumble under the slightest amount of pressure.
Yes.
Like David Hogg wasn't even doing anything that crazy. Even in his like initial like come out where he's saying I'm going to raise $20 million outside of my own personal capacity outside of the DNC to challenge Democrats in safe districts who haven't spoke out about anything in the House. That was the initial challenge. That's not even a real challenge at all whatsoever. That's just something that's going to make some people who are steeped in the institution of the DNC uncomfortable. And then those people are going to go to Ken Martin and be like, you got to stop this. And he's say, I don't know how to rein in like a 26-year-old. And he's crying on a Zoom call at work.
Yeah, Democrats used to wheel and deal, dude.
Yeah.
Like I know I'm not a liberal. I have like liberalism in its ideal form. I wouldn't even subscribe to that ideology. You know what I mean? But liberals used to like be a bit more powerful. But these guys are just fucking pathetic.
They can't do anything. They get in positions of power because they've been around long enough, and then they expect to just be in those positions of power and not do anything with that power. They like want to get power so bad for the status, but they do not want to wield power in any sort of way that's going to actually affect political change.
And it's like, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, dog. Like David Hogg, again, was not doing anything progressive. He's not a socialist. He's not a progressive. He just said we should have people that are not dying in office.
Yes.
And Ken Martin started breaking down, damn near crying on this Zoom call. Again, you can't handle the heat. Just get out of the kitchen. The fact that David Hogg was getting attention for the Democratic Party at all in this political environment where Trump is dominating every headline, that should have been reason to put fucking David Hogg in the president position.
Yes.
Or in the DNC chair position, I should say.
Yeah, just
come on, man.
The moment you let like a 20-something in the thing, too, a 20-something still fairly like new to politics. I know he's been doing this for like the last 10 years, but like you let him challenge you a little bit and you can't handle that. You can't rein your party in, man. You don't deserve to be the leader. You either need to adapt to what's trending right now, which is what they should always be doing. That's what conservatives do.
Yeah.
The moment somebody hits the news cycle, they're instantly all behind them. And it works.
Yeah. The fact that David Hogg, they didn't even let him cook like a little bit.
Yeah.
Is just, I mean, what do you do with this party, man? Like for a long time, I have felt that attempting to infiltrate the party and pull it more to the left is like the best use of political momentum. And in some cases, I think it is. Like Zoran's running as a Democrat. I think AOC has managed to do some good things. Bernie Sanders running in the Democratic primary. Like it had an overall good effect on the Overton window, at least within the party.
It's like all of these good people that are running with a D next to their name are just using the party infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's it.
But at a time when the anti-establishment sentiment is at an all-time high, at a time when the Democratic Party is associated with the establishment that has been failing people, you're going to kick out the guy who like has just a little bit of pushback on the establishment, the status quo as is. What are you supposed to do? Like, what message does this send to anybody that wants to get involved?
Yeah, the party is damn near just like fundamentally lost,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, to continue on this, I was listening to Point of Disorder, another very cool Michigan-based podcast
Huge.
that Jeremy featured on this week.
We'll leave
new
a link
episode
in the description.
New episode out right now. And towards the end of the episode, they sort of talk about Gina and Julie, the two hosts. They talk about how they went to the Michigan Democratic Party legacy dinner over the weekend. And it's just this basic like fundraiser. It's the big fundraiser for the year. They have a lot of people come around. They had JB Pritzker come and speak. And they were mentioning on the show, you should go check it out, really. that all of these like big Democratic Party bigwigs were talking about how, oh yeah, they were just patting themselves on the back saying right now we're the most powerful we've ever been. We're doing a great job, yada, yada, yada. Everybody just keep doing what you're doing. When the only reason, one, Democrats' favorability is historically low. I think it's literally the worst that it's ever been in the country's history, in the party's history.
And the approval for the Republican Party is also bad, but it's currently higher than the Democratic Party.
Which is insane, considering everything that's going on right now. Like, one, there's party approval historically low. Nobody fucks with you. You're not doing anything right.
Exactly. Nobody fucks with you.
Nobody fucks with you. Shut up, loser. I'm going to give you a swirly.
Oh, my God.
But it's just like they can't catch a vibe. You know what I mean?
They're bad at it, man. They can't do it.
The only power that they have right now, the only momentum that the Democrats are getting is simply in opposition to Republicans. Even like the 13% that they are popular, Mitch McConnell approval ratings. It's only because people can only flock to you.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're just relying on the fact that they are, for anybody with like any kind of morality left in their body when it comes to an analysis of politics, the only other choice they have is the Democratic Party, and that is what they rely on to win elections now.
Yeah.
So maybe they can get the 51-49 difference rather than lose by 1%.
That's not even like an analysis. That's what Chuck Schumer said like 2 months ago. He said, the strategy is to just sit back and let Donald Trump's actions speak for themselves. Sit back and let, I don't know, the LAPD beat the shit out of protesters and let that speak for itself rather than coming out and saying anything other than I condemn violence. But we'll get to that more in the main episode.
Yeah, so shout out Hogg. I don't know. I think he said he's just going to go focus on the other thing he was talking about, the primary challenges with that organization. Which
probably a better use of his time.
Certainly a better use of his time. Good luck to him. I hope he makes something work. Yeah. But yeah, this party is just so fundamentally broken.
There needs to be a coup.
Yeah, within the Democratic Party. We desperately need something to happen. So lock in. I don't know. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Welcome back to Head in the Office. It's Thursday, June 12th. We're here recording another episode. Today, we got to talk about more of the LA protests, really nationwide protests at this point.
Yeah, really,
things
escalation.
Are spreading. We also have to talk about a little bit later on this episode, Democrats again.
Once again, just cannot catch a vibe. Democrats, in some cases, in this case specifically, going out of their way to miss the vibe.
A third of the caucus just doing something objectively evil that we will talk about later on this episode in the face of fascism growing throughout the country. But before we get into all that, I'll remind you, become a patron. Become a patron. Early access to all of our content. We produce 2 episodes a week for you. That means you could get 2 episodes early.
That's right. You could get an episode on, Monday and Wednesday instead of Wednesday and Friday.
And that's big.
No more Wednesday welfare.
Nope.
No more Friday freeloading. You could get the Monday mandate and become a Thursday thought leader.
That's big.
That's the news as it happens.
And, we might have some exciting pieces of content that we're producing coming up with some exciting people. So maybe you want to get in on that action early before everybody else. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It'd be pretty cool. We got some important things coming up.
We also have a fundraiser that's still going on for Pride Month that you can participate in for the month of June. If you go over to our website, headintheoffice.com, you buy the Pride logo stickers, you buy the Pride logo magnet. All proceeds will be going to the Trevor Project. So go participate. We've had tons of Hito heads already get in on this action, so check it out.
We are raising funds in the month of June.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. We got the gay logo, and now we're getting the money for the Trevor Project.
I swear, if the Democratic Party gave us like $2 million, I could turn it into $1 billion by the end of the year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's what I do.
Exactly. You give me $2 million, and I could tell you in 1 week I'd use my extensive networking connections and business knowledge to 10x that money and do many other things. And then maybe I'd sell you all a course on how to do the same.
That's what we do on this podcast here. We sell people things.
#1 course podcast.
You can also get a subscription to Ground News, 40% off with our link in the description. You can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, subscribe on YouTube. All of it is down there in the description for you. You can also leave a 5-star review on Apple, and we don't have any today.
Second episode in a row without a 5-star review on Apple.
That's like second week in a row of not being able to eat.
What is going on?
I'm being starved.
What is going on?
This is a war crime. You people can't do this to me.
But alas, we do have a brief respite. A rest at the bonfire, if you will.
Sure.
With a review coming in from Instagram, because I will remind you, like I always do, whenever we face a week like this where there are no Apple reviews, we're an equal opportunity podcast.
That's how I describe us, yeah.
Not everybody has Apple. Some of you listen on Spotify. And you guys can leave your reviews on Instagram like this person, like Cole did here. Firstly, I want to say resolutely that I condemn Hamas and all forms of political violence.
Excellent.
Secondly, I want to give the biggest shout out to the most well-spoken and well-opinionated cis white men I have ever had the privilege of listening to outside of my performer, Professor Cage. Though regrettably, the price of living prevents me from being a Patreon supporter, heavy on that, as you damn well deserve. I look forward to your releases every week, and you have become a staple in my kitchen while I cook. Having graduated from the leftist woke bastion that is UC Davis, I applaud you gentlemen for dissecting the vast swath of news that often overwhelms and encourages people to remain uninformed due to its enormity in a time when the powers at be attempt to obscure the truth through the sheer number of their obscene political actions, violating values that I once believed were immutable and good. You remain reliable in keeping your messaging focused on the matters that affect average people in the most. I have and always will applaud your efforts. Lastly, I'd love to give a shout out to my loving girlfriend, Nicole, for putting me onto the spot. Shout out, Nicole.
Shout out, Nicole.
Shout out, Nicole.
Here we have a liberal girlfriend and a conservative boyfriend, but we're fixing it.
Precisely. We fixed him, and now he's one of us.
Cole, we know you're a conservative deep down, but we're fixing you, brother. Don't worry.
Yes, we are.
There's still a chance.
I can fix him. If you are a girl out there with a conservative boyfriend, you think I can fix him, send him right over here.
We fixed many people.
We have fixed many, many people. But back to Nicole, you are worth the world, and showing me these fine gentlemen might be your best recommendation. Yeah, heavy on that. I've been saying this. P.S. Sorry for listening on Spotify. I have a Samsung and can't ball on Apple Music like that. And that's why this is an equal opportunity podcast. So we can get stories out there like that, because really podcasting is about storytelling.
Yeah, well, it's an art form, really.
That's what we do here. This is narrative.
Podcasting is not a medium. It's not just a medium. It's also an art
exactly.
form.
It's a means of connection.
It's philosophy,
we've
really.
brought two people closer than they once were before.
That's right. So shout out to you. Also, shout out to we have a listener whose mom I saw at the Kendrick concert. She came up to me. Kendrick was in Detroit on Tuesday. She was like, "You're Jeremy from Head in the Office, right?" So shout out to your mom.
Yes.
And shout out to you, listener.
That's pretty good.
For pulling up on me at the Kendrick concert. I got the merch on right here. Little Gloria shirt. Anyways, it's time to get
this guy's flexing it.
I'm flexing. It was a
not
great
even
time.
in like solidarity with us other guys that like didn't buy the tickets, because like I was like, some people can't afford them. That's why I'm not going to buy them.
Yeah, going to the Kendrick concert is kind of petty bourgeois. I don't know why you thought
exactly.
You could do that. Are you really aligning your interests with the bourgeois class?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
he's like a millionaire, right? Like whatever.
Anyway, getting into the news, we got to talk about LA. And when I wrote these show notes, I'll have you know, it was Wednesday morning. Things have somewhat changed since then.
Yeah.
In terms of how violence is being used against individuals at these LA protests, and specifically who is doing that violence.
Yeah, and I mean, shit, we posted the episode on Monday for Patreon subscribers early, mind you, and things instantly changed after that. We were talking about how the National Guard was deployed, and we mentioned there's been talks that maybe Marines can be deployed, and that was a big deal. Just the talks, Hegseth saying, I think in front of Congress, yeah, maybe we'll get those guys out there.
Yeah.
And then an hour after we uploaded, he instantly deployed Marines, 700 of them, to LA.
Yeah. So the Hiddo curse strikes again.
Yeah, it's just morphed and changed.
Thankfully, not as severe as it would have been if we were only doing one episode a week, because now we can cover it today on Thursday.
Yes.
But yeah, definitely tragic. And then, of course, we had like curfew established, which we'll talk about on Tuesday night, which is another thing we didn't get to talk about. A whole lot has changed. But as of today, the protests in LA continue as National Guard and Marines have been deployed, as Gage said. At first, again, I wrote this on Wednesday morning. Yeah. So it's been a whole of 36 hours or something like that. At first, these guys weren't doing anything but kind of just like guarding buildings or standing in front of like ICE arresting people trying to look tough.
Yeah.
First of all, nothing more pathetic than like 5 guys trying to arrest one.
I'm saying.
Come on now. Like, you need 5 guys with like AR-15 standing in front of this one guy that's on
decked
the ground.
out in like full bulletproof vests, military gear, weapons all over you.
Yeah, you're wearing camo in an urban environment.
Yeah, desert camo.
Yeah,
in the middle of LA.
In the middle of LA.
In the middle of LA.
So at first they were kind of just like guarding federal buildings, standing in front of ICE officers, like not doing anything major. And they're not supposed to be doing arrests, but it seems like that's going to change.
Yeah, lo and behold, on Wednesday, a DHS spokesperson came out and made a statement about the soldiers saying, quote, if any rioters attack ICE law enforcement officers, military personnel have the authority to temporarily detain them until law enforcement makes the arrest. And then the military came out and they also made a statement saying broadly, quote, Title 10 forces may temporarily detain an individual in specific circumstances such as to stop an assault, to prevent harm to others, or to prevent interference with federal personnel performing their duties. I don't think it's much of a stretch to see that this means that like the federalized National Guardsmen and the Marines will be functionally given the authority to just arrest protesters if they're doing anything that is in the very broad category of obstructing ICE officers in performing their duties or obstructing federal officers in performing their duties. That seems like we've just given the military the ability to come out and arrest people.
Yeah, and they're being sort of specific with this wording here, and I'm very sure that they're not going to go beyond their authority as written in law. Of course, they wouldn't exceed their bounds or anything.
Because, like, I think how it's, like, written right now, or at least the justification that they're using, this invocation of, like, Article 10 of the Armed Forces Code, says that the Marines or the National Guard are only supposed to be protecting, like, federal buildings or, like, federal agents in the performance of their duties.
Yeah.
But this still feels like a gross overreach, right? Because, like, is there a real difference between being detained by a Marine and arrested by the Marine if the Marine is allowed to detain you until a cop comes up and arrests you?
Yeah.
If they're just allowed to hold you forever until a cop slowly walks over and puts the cuffs on you, were you arrested by the cop or were you arrested by the Marine?
Well, and even beyond that, like, this is the U.S. military being used against the civilian population.
It's the U.S. military being used. It's federal forces, federal armed forces being used specifically in the context of civilian law enforcement because these are functionally arrests. The Marines are going to be arresting people who interfere with these processes.
Yeah.
You can hide it behind this extra step of a cop walking over and actually doing the cuffs, but that's what's happening. And that is something that's strictly illegal. And I feel silly. For even bringing up the idea that this is strictly illegal. But this is more illegal than the things that they have been doing before, and it is indeed an escalation. Because the Article 10 thing is steeped behind the idea that it's steeped behind the administration's been hiding this whole time throughout this whole saga behind a bunch of different technicalities and liberal interpretations of words like invasion to be able to do things like the Alien Enemies Act or invoke Article 10 because they're claiming that this is a rebellion. Very liberal uses of language like that. They can't really do that here. Because they're arresting civilians.
They're arresting civilians with military personnel.
It's cops.
Yeah, no, like it's an occupation of LA is what it is.
And it's quite literally like where you can get away with liberal wording and interpretation, maybe, when it comes to Article 10, when it comes to Enemies Act. You can't get away with it when it comes to the Posse Comitatus Act. And what can I say?
One of the OGs, man.
One of the OGs back in like the 1800s, the Reconstruction Era Act. You know what I'm saying? This has been around for a while.
Yeah. That
explicitly states that federalized forces can't engage in civilian law enforcement unless otherwise authorized by the Constitution, which it is not, or explicitly authorized in legislation by Congress, which it has not.
Of course it hasn't been, and it won't be.
And it won't be, and it never should be.
Yeah. It's like there's not much analysis to do when you have military just arresting civilians.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really know what there is to say beyond, like, this is very obviously an attempt at despotism. Like, this is how a tyrannical government claims more and more power, more and more authority over the civilian population that they want to control and oppress. I don't know what else you could get out of the fact that Trump has deployed Marines against people in fucking LA.
Yeah.
Like, civilians in LA that are getting arrested. Hundreds of people have been arrested.
LA is being occupied by Marines and federalized National Guard. It's hard to come up with, I don't know, like a hoity-toity way to explain the situation.
Yeah, no, it's just plainly bad.
Because what's happening is truly kind of an authoritarian takeover.
Yeah, and again, I have to like remind people that, just to recontextualize everything, that these protests started last Friday. They started off peacefully. They've been peaceful for the most part, even as ICE and like the Marines have escalated shit. But everything that this administration has done, everything that law enforcement has done, has been to escalate tensions between the protesters and law enforcement that are there, or now military personnel that are there.
All of the like quote unquote violence that's been happening, the protests that have got out of hand, have been like relatively contained within like a 10-block radius within downtown.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what even law enforcement themselves are saying on like back channels and articles that nobody reads. But the big stories that get pushed out are the pictures of the Waymos on fire.
Yeah, yeah. But when I first saw the cars on fire, I didn't know what a Waymo was till this.
I didn't either. I thought it was a cop car because it had the thing on the top.
I live in a city where people actually still drive their cars.
Yes,
like real Americans.
Exactly.
So I didn't know what a Waymo was, but now I realize it's a driverless car. And it's taking jobs away from people.
And like it's kind of hilarious that like they were allowed, like the protesters, rowdy ones, could just call a Waymo in and set it on fire. Like that's kind of just funny.
And it's like it's owned by Google, so like who really? I mean, of course, don't do property damage needlessly. I condemn
political violence.
Yeah, exactly. But nobody was hurt. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, who
It's
cares?
a driverless car in a company. It's a car owned by one of the richest companies in the world, one of the biggest companies in the world,
and it's a Waymo. Like it's that's funny.
Exactly. Like it's hilarious. Like they're standing out front of the Waymos. It's not like people's cars.
Well, that's because that's what I thought at first. They just like lit somebody's car on fire.
I thought it was a random person's car on fire. I thought it was a cop car on fire, and it's not.
It's just a car.
It's
owned
somewhere
by Google.
in between.
It's a car. It's a car owned by one of the big tech companies that conservatives are supposed to hate for being woke or whatever.
Yeah.
So they should be in favor of this.
I feel like this is what has happened isn't even as crazy as when the Eagles won the Super Bowl.
No, not at all.
and nobody wants to talk about that. I'm pretty sure, didn't somebody die this year at like the Eagles celebration
so.
afterwards?
So.
They
Nobody's
climbed a
died
pole and fell off. At least that happens sometimes when the Eagles win. Nobody's died here.
Yeah, despite law enforcement's best efforts to get somebody killed, probably.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Despite law enforcement's best efforts to pop people with rubber bullets from like 2 feet away.
Despite law enforcement on the first day that these protests kicked off, or maybe it was Saturday, running somebody over.
Yes,
Literally running somebody
smacked
over.
his head on the concrete. I saw a video this week of somebody, not even like a protester, I don't think. Some dude with a camera. He walked up to like a cop holding the rubber bullet gun, and he's like, "What's your name and badge number?" That's funny. That's just objectively funny to do that in this kind of context in general. And none of the cops batted an eye at him walking up to them. It wasn't a tense situation like that. But once he asked for homeboy's badge number, he said, "I'm going to pop you for distracting me." And then he shot him from like 2 feet away with a rubber bullet.
What the fuck?
On video. These people, these cops, this is why we say it's the cops, it's the National Guard, it's the Marines. All of these law enforcement entities are the people that have actually escalated these protests. Because they're just doing violence and they know they can get away with it.
Yes.
On Monday, we talked about the Australian reporter who got shot. You could see clearly on video the cop wasn't looking at her. She had her back turned to him. She's just covering it with a camera, big-ass camera right in front of her. He turns, looks at her, shoots her in the leg, and then looks back like he got away with something.
Because he's not going to get punished.
He's not going to get punished. They know that they can do this shit on camera, and it just doesn't fucking matter. I saw another video this week of a lady walking up to like a police line with her hands up. She's like, "Hey, I like live behind this line. Can I get back here and get home?" And they shot her.
Well, yeah, and I was going to bring that up in the context of the curfew, but that's when the curfew was imposed on downtown.
Okay.
It was like past 8 p.m. Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, said like anybody that lives downtown, obviously the curfew doesn't apply to you because you got to get home if you got to get home. And yeah, they just fucking popped her. Yeah. And I saw people in the comments of that video, like on Twitter, like, well, she should have stopped moving towards police officers. She lives in that direction.
But she lives in that direction. She's walking slowly with her hands up.
And it's like, okay, like I'm not trying to like id pull this, you know what I mean? But as a white woman alone at night in LA, what is she gonna do to you? Like she's walking home and you just fucking pop her? Like the stereotype that conservatives build is like masked men, masked brown guys that are pulling up full of tattoos. They're gonna blow up cars and kill law enforcement. This is a white woman.
And it was
walking
also
home.
It was also a street that like wasn't full of protesters. It was very much just like an empty street. The cops are just making sure people don't do this because they're trying to secure an area or whatnot.
Yeah, and they just shot her.
It's just for fun.
With a rubber bullet, yeah. No, it's because they know they can get away with it. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They've been given full reign.
Nothing is ever going to happen to them because this is allowed within like official capacity. There's not going to be like lawsuits that come against them that stick. They're allowed to do this shit.
And it's like historically we've known that anytime like an army is, an army occupies a place that is foreign to them, they go in and commit like the most heinous crimes imaginable.
Yeah.
Or if you just watched Andor season 2, like when they're pulling up, going house to house, you know what I mean?
Yeah, type shit.
And they're just doing like evil things because they can get away with it. This is what like standing armies have always done throughout all of human history. Why is it surprising they would do it now? And of course, with all like the Supreme Court precedent and all the fact that cops basically get away with anything, there's no reason they wouldn't just shoot someone on camera. They're having fun. They can do whatever they want.
And shit, some of these cops have their faces covered too. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I pay your bills, dog.
So it's astonishingly bad out there, and I hope you're staying safe if you're in the great city of LA, or if you are in any of the protests that have popped up since, or if you're going to be in any of the protests happening on Saturday for No King's Day, as Trump does his military parade. Stay safe. Try not to intentionally anger police officers. They might just shoot you anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Like, you either whether or not you're approaching them, have your back turned to them and walking away, whether or not you got a big ass camera in front of you, you might just get bopped.
Yeah. So from the AP as of July 11th, so yesterday for us, but this is a quote from then. Quote: Trump has activated more than 4,000 National Guard members and 700 Marines over the objections of city and state leaders. Though the Marines have not yet been spotted in Los Angeles, I think that's changed since now. now. And guard
I
troops
think they're
had
set
limited
to deploy
engagement.
on Friday.
Okay.
Like they're
yeah.
in Los Angeles right now, but they're set to be on the streets on Friday.
Yeah, also just like a side headline that I saw this week, and that I think that Gage initially quote tweeted. There's more troops in LA than Iraq and Syria right now.
And it's not like it's not like we necessarily should be in Iraq and Syria right now. But I know for damn certain that we should not be in LA right now.
Mm-hmm. Like Iraq is like a country that we fear-mongered about endlessly.
Yeah.
For the past 25 years or something like that. Los Angeles, we got more troops in Los Angeles than the country we've been fear-mongering about forever.
And like we've been involved in Syria. Like I don't know if it's like extrajudiciously, but like Congress never declared war on Syria. We've been involved in Syria for a long time.
Well, we
now.
haven't declared war since World War II.
Damn, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But either way, it's LA.
It's just like, again, I don't know how to describe in moral terms the fact that Trump is using military against people other than just saying this is obviously bad and tyrannical.
And it's like, I feel like we're in a really weird space right now when it comes to the point that things have escalated to and the point that they very well may escalate to from here, right?
Yeah.
Because up until now, I would say maybe even up until the news broke that the Marines can just go functionally arrest people now, the deployment of the National Guards and the announcement of the deployment of 700 Marines has been largely aesthetic. Mm-hmm. They've shown up, they've stood in front of federal buildings, they've done nothing. It's to appeal to the aesthetics of being the law and order guy, the guy that's going to restore law and order by just doing the most quote unquote law and order thing possible without caring for what would substantively restore law and order, taking the goddamn troops out of one of the most famous American cities.
Yeah, and not whisking people off the street.
And not raiding Home Depots and 7-Elevens like
Yeah.
Stephen Miller told you to do.
And schools.
And schools, elementary
for
schools,
undocumented
graduations, anything like that. If Donald Trump and the Trump administration actually cared about the principles of law and order and bringing peace back to the streets of LA and throughout the country, they just wouldn't be doing the most heinous and gross and aesthetically abrasive things possible.
Yeah.
They also want to test the border of what they can get away with before they actually do something genuinely insane. They want to see if they can get away. They want to ease you into accepting the aesthetics of people in desert camo walking around with AR-15s or N4s down the streets of LA before they actually maybe do it.
And that isn't an exaggeration.
No.
Like there have been plenty of images that you can go and find of protesters peacefully protesting and standing in front of literal military guys in fatigues with assault rifles.
I saw on Hassan's stream, there was a video he was playing of like local news that was playing a video of a federal agent with a gun pointing it, a federal agent, I think with a mask on, pointing a gun at a protester, and the protester like taunting back at him. Hard as fuck, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And the news described this as the two people taunting each other.
Yeah.
Rather than a state official pointing a gun at a protester.
Yeah.
Like a real gun, not a rubber bullet gun, like a gun with bullets.
Even with the Australian reporter, which was just like the most in-your-face, obvious example of police brutality, I think the BBC said like caught in crossfire.
Yes.
He shot her.
The BBC had caught in crossfire, and then she went on, I think, her regular news program, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to be the story. And
Tough.
it's like, I get personally not wanting to be the story, but like, look at the moment that's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane. I think we need to take whatever stories that we can get. We need to win the narrative war.
You're an Australian in America. Like this is just how it goes. You know what I mean? So, really, really not great. Looking bad. And again, like we said last episode, I condemn political violence.
Yes.
Of course. But the trouble is, when you literally deploy the military when you deploy the Marines against the civilian population, I'm not sure exactly what you expect. Like, how do you expect people to respond when their city is literally being occupied after they fairly got angry about federal agents coming in and ripping families apart? Mm-hmm. That is going to lead to political violence. And again, we don't have to condone it. We don't have to say it's good. We don't have to even call for it or anything like that. But we can understand that when you do this to communities, when you send in an occupying force into to a civilian population, they're going to react sometimes with violence.
It's about understanding why people resist. It's kind of like you can take the principles of how we comment on what's happening in Gaza, on Israel and their excessive violence against the people in Gaza, and the resistance from organizations like Hamas against that violence. Call it what you will, but like it's the same kind of principles that apply here, right? You have this force with immense power coming and doing something that people do not agree with. They're going to resist in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's understandable, and it happens every time.
And for the people that are super concerned about optics, that are seemingly on the side of the protest but keep talking about like flag discourse or lighting cars on fire or anything like that, I was listening to Chapo the other day, and I think Felix summed it up pretty well when he said that it's strange how the people who are being the people who are victims to state violence are the only ones who ever have to care about how their actions look.
Yes.
The government never has to care. There's never an argument like, oh, does this look bad on the government? Will this make Republicans look bad? Will this make Trump look bad? It's always, you need to be measured in your response. And I think it's fair to say on an individual level, like, hey, if you're talking to a friend, hey, don't go light this car on fire.
Real.
But again, we should be talking about the logical conclusions or the logical material actions that are going to happen after you disrupt communities and send in the fucking army.
And a lot of these narratives happen as like a result of what the mainstream media like chooses to cover. You know what I mean? It's always a story when one Waymo gets set on fire. We talked about this Monday. There was like one car that was set on fire on like Saturday or Friday, and that was the image that was blown up all over the internet. That was the image that articles were written about. But then when the Australian gets shot by a cop, it's like a much littler thing in comparison. It doesn't get spread around as much. It doesn't get written about as much. There was a CNN crew that was detained by cops this week and forced to go behind them in the protest line. They said, we don't want you in here like covering this area. That shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening. I shouldn't have to go and scroll through TikTok and Twitter to find the videos of police doing brutality against protesters. I should be able to go to ABC and not watch compilations of that, but see news stories highlighting, are the police going too far in this? Just like people talk about how, are the protests going too far? Are the protests too out of hand? There's also like this perverse incentive that I feel like the media has, because we live in this situation where they need to drive clicks to their websites to maintain relevance, for-profit media and whatnot, where they have to push the things that are the most inflammatory, and it will institutionally bias conservatism in general. Because that's what appeals to people's most base fears. The story about the cars being lit on fire, or the story about a store getting looted, is going to get a lot more clicks than the story that goes along the lines of, well, yes, while this car got set on fire, I think the bigger focus should be on the reasons why this protest is happening, and we shouldn't let this one instance of maybe a bad actor taking advantage of a situation to escalate things when they shouldn't have, go make us ignore the reason that these protests are happening in the first place. And that's kind of where my issue with broader Democratic leadership's response is in terms of this too. I don't think there's a reason why you as a person in power, or really in general, should make your first statement on the LA protests be, I condemn the violence of what's going on. Stop the rowdy protests. Things have gotten out of hand. Let's bring it back. Nobody's going to listen to you if you're doing all this stuff. The first statement should be why the protests are happening, why what Trump administration is doing is wrong. And then when somebody asks you about the violence, you say, yeah, I condemn that too. It should be an afterthought, because obviously you condemn the violence. Nobody likes the violence that's going on except for the Trump administration, because it's giving him a reason to clamp down harder. And I'm not going to use that as an excuse to like tell people like, oh, blah, 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 bring an American flag, because that's stupid, because I want to focus on what's actually important. The issues, it's ICE. It's Stephen Miller telling ICE last month, go to Home Depots, go to 7-Elevens. That's a quote.
Yeah, and I think, I don't, maybe this is a hot take. And, of course, I condemn political violence. I'll preface all of my statements. But I don't think people actually care that much about violence happening.
No, they don't, because they don't care about the state violence happening, like you said.
And, the state has, an air of authority and legitimacy to it when it does violence, of course.
The state's monopoly on violence.
The state has a monopoly on violence, of course. And so when the state does violence, there's, more legitimacy tied up in when it does it. But when it does something so egregious, like shoot a reporter with a rubber bullet, nobody fucking cares. But everyone cares, like you said, about the car getting lit on fire, even though nobody was inside and nobody got hurt when that happened, because the media focuses on it so intently. I don't think if we covered things fairly and we gave a fair explanation to things, people would really give that much of a fuck about violence happening in terms of what's happened at these protests so far.
Because in context of these protests, the violence that's happening is minuscule. But it was what was reported. I think that outlets have gotten better about it as the protests have happened throughout the week, particularly since Monday, because things didn't pop off like they did on the weekend because, more people are at work, frankly. It's not page agitators and whatnot. But over the weekend, there were more hits on the picture of the dude with the Mexican flag looking hard as hell, standing on top of the burning Waymo.
Very cool.
Than there were on the video of the Australian getting shot. And that's not a world, that's not a system that is conducive to telling the truth. We can't have for-profit media kind of exist in this way because it will ultimately only ever end in like right-wing capitulation.
For sure. And like in those two scenarios, there's only one in which a person got hurt.
Yes.
And that was the one where the cop shot the reporter.
Yes.
Nobody got hurt when bro lit the Waymo on fire because there was nobody inside.
One of these situations has hype moments and aura, and the other one doesn't.
Yeah. And I've also seen a narrative emerging where it's like they're lighting cars on fire, they're lighting shopping carts on fire. What if they start a wildfire? Dog, police and ICE are throwing flashbangs. That is equally likely to start a wildfire.
One of these
Nobody fucking cares about this.
The only people throwing explosives are the cops.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's dumb. Speaking of just like bad responses from Democrats, since our discussion on Monday, Mayor of LA Karen Bass established a curfew that has now been suspended, but it was through Tuesday night and I think maybe Wednesday night as well in downtown LA. The curfew, like I said, has been lifted at this point, but LAPD was essentially dispersed on like horseback to break up these protests. And this curfew was imposed. And basically it said, if anybody comes downtown, you're just going to get detained unless you live here.
Nice. Okay.
So,
wow.
Not great. As we said, a woman got shot, even though she did live in the area. The claim that Karen Bass used to justify this curfew is that shops were being looted. I think she said like 29 different storefronts were looted. This is a claim made at every protest to disparage every single protest. I don't know how true it is. Even if it is true, so whatever, man. This happens when you send in an army.
I can't stand looting discourse because anytime one store gets looted, and it's all the media likes to talk about, because again, it just plays into those base fears that really draw in clicks. And almost every single time that looting happens when a protest gets out of hand, let's say, it's bad actors looking to take an opportunity to do something that they just like wanted to do. It speaks, and then when it gets coverage like that, coverage even just like adjacent to the protest, even if the media doesn't mean to connect it explicitly to the aims of the protesters, it's always going to be linked together. And I don't know, people in the burbs are always going to take this as, oh, look, these people just want an excuse to go rob the Apple store. They don't actually care about anything. And it completely hijacks the moment.
Yeah.
It's so fucking annoying having to sit here and talk about looting when there's real issues happening.
Yeah, and it's sort of a meme at this point where it's like person who doesn't care about your movement says, oh, this is not going to do anything to help your movement. You know what I mean? But there's been a lot of people saying like, oh, look at this storefront being looted. This isn't going to help your movement if you want to like protect immigrants from deportation. And it's like, well, the same claims were made, I think, to like a higher degree during BLM, and the general population actually fucked with it pretty heavy.
Yeah, actually,
Joe Biden got elected after that, in fact.
I feel like these things happen during every protest, and every protest in the short term, the media loves to cover like the quote unquote violence, the looting, the cars on fire. And then if the protest was, meaningful, actually going at an issue that really matters, like a lot of these issues do, the looting and the cars on fire and the property damage isn't what gets remembered. It's the actual movement. And I feel like we should take that lesson from the protests of history and apply that to now and understand what's really important. But nobody ever wants to do that. Instead, I saw a billion videos this week and a billion state officials talking about, please stop putting up graffiti in LA. Really, please stop putting graffiti in LA.
In LA.
In LA.
Nah, like if any protest is truly disruptive, if it's truly making a difference or making people think, it will be accused of being violent at some point.
It's just like
it's how it always goes.
Any person left of Gavin Newsom, and honestly, any person left of Mitch McConnell will always be called a communist. There's nothing that you can do. Conservatives will always frame you in bad faith. You can never get away with it. You can never get away with it.
The BLM protests were accused of rioting, were accused of looting, even though the vast majority of them were peaceful. I mean, people even still to this day say Portland was burned down. They say Minneapolis was burned down. It's just not true.
Trump got on. He said sometime this week, if the National Guard wouldn't have got there, LA would have been burned to the ground by now. Brother, it was like 6 Waymos.
Yeah. No, we don't live in the same reality.
It was like 6 Waymos, and the National Guard troops up until now have just stood in front of federal buildings and slept on top of each other on concrete floors.
And in the same way, the college campus protests last year were accused of like assaulting Jewish students, which by and large just was not true, right? Like these protests, if they're making a difference, if they're making people think, if they're getting media attention, they will always be disparaged by people that are looking to delegitimize the movement. And that's just a narrative that you got to deal with. And like you said, it's the dynamic there is even more cursed because of the profit motive in media itself. There's a bias towards conservatism there, but you just gotta deal with it. It's just the way of the world.
I don't fuck with corporate media and its adherence to capital. Profit for the sake of profit is fundamentally corrosive to civil society.
Democracy.
I'll say it.
I don't like capitalism.
The profit motive in media and truth are fundamentally forces that oppose each other. I'll stand up against it. What can I say?
Getting to the more nitty gritty stuff here, according to LA Chief of Police Jim McDonnell, quote, or this was a story where Jim McDonnell was talking, quote, McDonnell said that police have made 197 arrests on Tuesday, including 67 who were taken into custody for unlawfully occupying part of the 101 freeway. Several businesses were broken into Monday, though authorities didn't say if the looting was tied to the protests. The vast majority of arrests have been for failing to disperse, while a few others were for assault with a deadly weapon, looting, vandalism, and attempted murder for tossing a Molotov cocktail.
Oh, wow.
7 police officers were reportedly injured, and at least 2 were taken to the hospital and then released. So here you have it from the police. Lots of people being arrested, but the vast majority of arrests were just because they didn't clear out.
It doesn't really
which is
sound
protesting.
It doesn't really sound like LA is being burned to the ground right now.
Yeah, not at all. Also, just on a fun little waste, fraud, and abuse portion, the Pentagon said that deploying the National Guard and the Marines to Los Angeles is going to cost something like $134 million.
Yeah.
I thought we were saving the government money. I thought this was the fiscally responsible party.
No, it's really cool when we spend money to do things that are just done for the purpose of being aesthetically violent and to do just aesthetics. This is all for like an IG post. Really, like that sounds kind of reductive, but that's what's actually happening. Trump is deploying Marines to an American city for the IG posts because it fits the narrative that's going on.
Yeah. Imagine how much money we could have saved if Stephen Miller didn't demand ICE to deport 3,000 people a day.
And like, how does this cost $134 million?
Because we're sending in the military. We got to pay them. We got to pay for equipment. All
But
that
like,
kind of stuff.
how does it cost that much money?
I don't know. Everything costs a lot of money.
Oh my God.
I bet the abundance guys could make this cheaper. They could find a way.
We should get Ezra Klein on the operation. I bet he could really cut things down.
It's just, it's crazy. In a more national view, there's been protests that have popped up elsewhere for similar operations by ICE, although none of them have been nearly as big as the Los Angeles operations. But I was reading an NBC story that was going around to different states and just covering the responses from different communities. And I have one quote here that I just thought was really good.
Okay.
Because there's always this conversation about like immigrants are coming over and taking jobs, or if immigrants are here, they need to be deported and they shouldn't be working illegally, like whatever. But this story I thought was good. Quote, in Omaha, 2 businesses were targeted for federal immigration enforcement operations, local officials said. Mayor John Ewig Jr.'s office said federal agents arrested 80 people at Glen Valley Foods and Lala Dairy. Chad Hartman, a spokesperson for Glen Valley Foods, said in a statement that federal agents searched the company's facility for persons believed to be using fraudulent documents to gain employment. He said that the company strives to operate within the law and that it is cooperating with agents and that it has not been charged with any crime. We have immigrants that are working here undocumented that are now being punished and being deported for working here undocumented, but the businesses themselves are facing no legal challenges whatsoever. And that to me seems to be the game. Is to get the brown people out, get the undesirables out, but these businesses that are exploiting them for their labor, there's going to be no punishment against them because you got to protect capital.
What a fucked up system. I don't get how we got here. And it's like these business owners also like kind of have to cooperate with the feds, or else the state will threaten them with violence. The state will say, we will actually charge you if you don't cooperate us and let us deport your workforce too. Yeah,
and like, of course, people might respond to being like, oh, they might not have known they're undocumented. No business owner is going to admit to the fucking media, I was hiring people that are here illegally.
I think I had
Of course they're going to say they think that they're documented.
I think I had read some things that said that they use the state system to check their employment verification and whatnot.
I think there's requirements in some states to do that, or it might be a federal requirement.
You got to do an I-9, brother.
Yeah. Like they business owners often know the citizenship status of the people that they're hiring. I mean, you got to get a litany of documents to even hire people in the first place.
Of course, you want to know if your employee is undocumented so that when they come and ask you for a raise, you can say, well.
Yeah, exactly. Like they know exactly what they're doing. These business owners that hire undocumented folks and exploit them for both for their labor and just because they know that they can't like do anything about like labor violations and shit. They know what they're doing. working. And if conservatives were serious about wanting to like get undocumented people out of the country, they would crack down on these businesses. Of course, as a leftist, I think that we should just give them citizenship.
Yes.
They're working and contributing here. I don't think they deserve to be kicked out. I don't like want businesses punished specifically for hiring undocumented people. But if Republicans and right-wingers were consistent, then they'd want to go after those businesses because that like is the heart of the problem.
And it's like, these are people who are coming here, living and working. That doesn't sound like an MS-13, a drug and sex trafficker to me.
It's not, yeah, they're working at what, like a food market?
Yeah.
Like what, they're literally providing the substance of life for
I think
people.
I had seen there was like a meat packing facility that was raided.
Yeah.
The jungle.
Already.
Nobody wants to work there.
Yeah, already like terrible working conditions.
Yes.
Unfortunately, like an essential function for the society that we live in terms of like getting food distributed, but not great working conditions as is.
Not great working conditions. Once again, I feel like this is going to pop up a lot more as Stephen Miller's just draconian quotas start to kick in more, and he starts firing more ICE officers, and more of them fear for their jobs, so they fear they have to crack down even harder and harder. But we're really going to expose the idea for everyone to see that a lot of immigrants come over here and don't take jobs from Americans, but rather work the jobs that Americans don't want to work, often for less pay and for worse conditions because they have to.
Yeah, same shit with like the tariffs. Like everyone's like, oh, it's going to bring factory jobs back, but like less than a quarter of Americans actually want to work factory jobs. It's just the aesthetics of it all.
And my trinkets are going up. My trinket prices are going up.
We talk about a state like Florida, right? Like Florida's agricultural industry relies a lot on undocumented labor. I don't remember the percentages, but it's a decent chunk of the agricultural industry. You could ask somebody that lives in, I don't know, the suburbs of New York or somewhere in the Midwest, like, should these undocumented immigrants be here? They might say no. But are they going to go down and work in Florida in the blistering sun? No, they're not going to.
Are they going to start picking oranges in the field literally all day?
Because the argument that they take jobs was never actually about the jobs. It's just about the fact that they don't want the brown people in their country.
Yes, and then they're going to complain when their orange prices go up because the Americans that do end up having to work those jobs because they got pushed into it. Hell, in Florida, maybe it'll be high schoolers since they allowed child labor again. But either way, when they have to pay them more and their prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that because I fuck with the idea that we can pay undocumented immigrants less money to do things. I think if it costs more money, if you aren't paying somebody a living wage to do the labor, then that thing should cost more. If the reason that it costs less is to keep the wages down, is because you're keeping the wages down of the workers, I think that thing should cost more.
Yeah.
That's my take on the issue.
Yeah, no, I don't want there to be like an underclass of people that just get more exploited than any other laborer because they're not citizens. I think we should like protect them equally. All workers should have the same protections because it's all the same class interest.
But that's that stupid fucking conservative line that was going around a couple months ago. It's like, oh, look, the left wants undocumented people to stay here and do slave labor because we were comparing undocumented work to slave labor because it kind of is. It's ridiculous. And man, it's just on the same vein about something we talked about earlier. I saw this banger cat turd tweet.
Hell yeah, dude.
I forgot about that guy cat turd, but he came back with a vengeance on our Twitter feed yesterday when I think I was scrolling, and he quote tweeted something about the LA protests and said, "You never see them out here protesting for homeless vets." Motherfucker, what do you do? When do you protest for homeless vets? Conservatives only ever bring up like veterans issues in the context of other issues that are happening right now.
It was the conservative Supreme Court that said you can criminalize homelessness.
It was Donald Trump right now who said we're going to take money from the VA.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Also, people absolutely do protest against homelessness.
Yes.
There are absolutely protests against measures that would make homelessness worse. Like, undoubtedly.
And it's just like the way that conservatives just use like veterans and homeless veterans as just this virtue signal is genuinely insane. These people don't believe in anything and only pretend to believe in things when you believe in something that they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. We got any other details on this LA protest stuff?
I think that's about it for the protests themselves. I do know Gavin Newsom is suing Trump, Pete Hegseth, and I think a couple other administration officials specifically about the deployment of the National Guards, maybe the Marines. I'm not sure if that's in the fundamental legal question of the case. And that is, there's a hearing for that today. So maybe by the time this episode posts, everything will change.
Yeah, I'm going to be really, really upset if Gavin Newsom gets the clout for getting arrested by Trump.
Yeah.
That's because like that's just a shoe-in for the 2028 Democratic primary. If Gavin Newsom's the one that gets that clout, that's going to be really upsetting.
And, part of me was wondering, late night, last night, I'm trying to go to sleep, trying to get to bed, trying to get good rest so I can come perform on this show for everybody.
Big on that, brother.
Big on that, huge on that. Podcasting is blue collar.
It is.
And my brain is just going because it always is. I'm always thinking about narratives, analyzing and whatnot. And I was wondering, conspiratorially, maybe the Democrats are just shutting the fuck up right now because they've already ordained Gavin Newsom as the guy. Because they just want him to have the spotlight and they don't want to take anything away. And I wouldn't be surprised if that is the reality because, one, it allows them to sit back and do nothing, which is what Democrats love to do, especially guys like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and the other institutionalists. And two, they can just let Gavin Newsom be the guy and they can already start putting their weight behind him before, God forbid, an AOC presidential run.
Yeah, I don't know if I could assign them that much like organizational effectiveness.
This is true.
But I do think that Gavin Newsom has that thought in his head and he's trying to goad Trump into doing something.
Why else would he say, "Oh, come arrest me then"?
If you put Newsom in handcuffs like on the news and he's getting arrested for quote unquote defending his people, then yeah, that's going to look really, really good for a primary.
Yeah, it is.
Because Newsom can just run on like Trump's afraid of me, the right wing's afraid of me, they tried to have me arrested, they tried to silence me, a governor.
Well, he can run on being the only guy who fought against Trump, even though he wouldn't have done it if he wasn't put in a situation where he was literally cornered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has no other choice. Like it's either capitulate or do something.
It's either let the military occupy LA fully, just fully let the military take control of California, or fight back a little bit in the courts.
Yeah, and could you imagine if Gavin Newsom had said like I'm fully complying with Trump's orders here? That would have just been a death knell for any. Like he has no other choice but to defy Trump on this issue, and especially with the way he treats like homeless people, I don't think he cares that much about immigrants.
Oh, absolutely, and it's crazy because it's like even if we get the good outcome, like everybody stops, the ICE raids stop, we still are stuck with the worst option for 2028.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gavin Newsom's a demon.
What could be worse than Gavin Newsom out of the like current people who actually have a chance?
Yeah.
I don't know.
One other thing I wanted to talk about is just this little argument I've been seeing online lately, because I think it's sort of indicative of where we are. Because like, as the logical endpoint of right-wing beliefs on immigration is sort of coming into view with these ICE raids and the protests that are happening after them, I've been seeing a lot of conservatives just sort of flatten their argument to, quote, they're here illegally, so they should be deported, right? Like, that's all they're saying at this point. It was once illegal for a black person to drink from the same water fountain as a white person. Just because something is in law doesn't mean that it's immoral to do that thing. And it doesn't mean that the law enforcement of that law would be moral itself. And I think everybody knows that, but they just defer to it's illegal, therefore it's bad.
Yeah, law is our best attempt at codifying morality to create like a cohesive social structure, heavy on the best attempt part, because clearly throughout history it has not always been that, and certainly right now it does not always continue to do that. If Stephen Miller is allowed to tell people to kidnap people out in Home Depot parking lots.
Yeah, and this belief that like they're here illegally, therefore they should be deported, just boils down to they don't belong here, which is a fundamentally xenophobic view. You just don't want black and brown people in your country. Not to mention there are numerous ways in which immigration, both undocumented and documented, is good for the United States, not only culturally, but economically too, which is a thing conservatives are ostensibly supposed to care about.
And it's just so intellectually lazy to just appeal to legality in instances like this.
Yeah.
You really mean to tell me that we're facing one of the greatest like moral issues in our country at this time, and you're like, oh, but the law. Oh, but the thing that some guy wrote.
Yeah, like, again, there's been a number of things historically that have been either legal or illegal that we would not call moral actions, right? Like, again, a black person drinking from a white water fountain is something that they could have gotten arrested for, that they did get arrested for. But we wouldn't call that moral, that the fact that they got arrested, even though they, by definition, committed a crime. Not to mention also, like, if we're deferring to legality here, an illegal border crossing on its own without any other like crime associated with it is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor. It's not actually a crime.
Akin to jaywalking. It's dealt with in civil court. It's a civil violation.
I jaywalk all the time. I do. I'll come out and say it.
Like for a civil violation, deportation is quite a severe punishment. And the fact that they look out and they think, if you're here illegally, you deserve to be deported, is just like it's a violent view. It's a xenophobic view. And I think it's bad. I think it's lazy.
And it's also just like a lot of these people cannot see the irony that all of these like big nabbings have either happened at courts, which means that people are complying lawfully within the system. People love to talk about a legal pathway to citizenship. People are actively doing that and getting kidnapped. It's either courts or places of work.
Yeah.
So right there, the two massive narratives that 20 million illegals have poured across the border to come kill your white daughters and do crime and sex traffic and bring fentanyl into American communities is just kind of thrown out the window because I don't think a guy who's bringing fentanyl into the country is going to take a detour at a meatpacking facility and put in a 9 to 5.
Undocumented immigrants commit like less than 0.5% of all violent crimes in this country.
Undocumented immigrants commit less crime, I think, on average than like natural-born American citizens. Per capita. And they also put more into taxes than they take out.
Because they can't take it out.
They don't draw on Social Security. Unless they're in California in certain circumstances, they can't get Medicaid.
Exactly.
They can't get these health insurance programs. They can't rely on government assistance. They don't have government things to access. So when Stephen Miller gets on there and gets on Twitter and constantly talks about how illegals are a drain on the system, brother,
yeah,
they're a boon to the economy.
And it's like the white people in rural America, in shitty-ass towns that Republicans have destroyed, are more of a drain on a system than the undocumented immigrant that they will never see in their entire life.
Missouri as a state is probably more of a drain on the system than I think all of the undocumented immigrants in the entire country.
Yeah.
I don't have numbers to back that up, but it's how I feel, and so it's what I believe.
Rural communities like ran by Republicans are fucking wastelands. Yeah. And the people there are far greater drains on our tax system than undocumented immigrants will ever be. And that's not me like moralizing the issue.
No.
I think it's okay if you got to make use of government resources, but Republicans don't. And they continue to pretend like undocumented immigrants are this massive burden on society, that they're like destroying Western civilization or whatever. They just don't want them here. They're just xenophobic. They're just racist.
And this whole conversation is really funny, especially in the context of California too. What is it? The 4th largest economy in the world as like a state?
Yes.
I mean, if California left, you're fucked.
And like, just look at a list of the names of the cities in California. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Santa Monica. Like
San Diego.
Just look at, I mean, it's right there, man.
The irony's not lost on me.
It's not.
The irony's not lost on me. It's crazy. But even beyond LA, protests have sort of kicked off just like across the country in solidarity with what's going on. We've had a lot of protests in Chicago, a couple other places, but for the purpose of this like little just brief moment, there were protests already kicked off in Texas a little bit. But importantly, there were protests that were planned to kick off in Texas, like today, tomorrow, this weekend, the No King's Day stuff, things like that. And in preparation for that, Greg Abbott decided he should deploy the National Guard across the state to, quote, ensure peace and order before any of the protests actually start.
That's crazy.
A typical Greg Abbott move. The cruelty is the point. The violent aesthetics are the point. These people desperately want a reason to be able to clamp down on political dissidents.
There's not even a pretext there.
Why are we skipping the police?
Well, skipping the police, but like the justification that Trump uses that, these protests are getting out of hand. Protests haven't started yet.
Yeah.
And so you're just like preemptively escalating.
Yeah.
Preemptively making things more dangerous for everybody involved.
You watched everything get worse when the National Guard show up in LA and you're like, I'm going to do that in my state. I want to bring that here. Greg Abbott is doing nothing to keep his citizens safe by deploying the National Guard. In fact, he's just doing the opposite.
Yeah.
It's actually crazy. And keeping in the theme of Republican states and what they're doing right now, over in Georgia, the Attorney General threatened domestic terrorism charges for, quote, those who earn it. What a time.
Man,
what a time.
We got fascists all around the country. Like, the authoritarian crackdown is really on it. I don't know what to say about it.
I don't either. I'm just hoping that the moment they crack down on speech, there's like enough time to delete the podcast.
Delete all trace, go completely dark.
Exactly. Just completely take myself off the internet, wipe my present, buy one of those services that will anonymize you. I don't know. It might happen, folks.
It does suck I can't take like any international trips for like 4 years.
No, literally.
Because I can't risk coming back across Border Patrol.
And I'd kind of be offended if I didn't get stopped at least a little bit.
Like I kind of want to, you know what I mean? Hassan got the clout. Why can't I?
Like as like a white guy who is a citizen, like I do have the privilege of being able to feel offended if I'm not clouded enough to be stopped by CBP and questioned at least once. Like, do you make statements against the president? No.
My greatest fear is just not being recognized.
Precisely. You know, they say you die twice. Once when you're forgotten and once when you actually die. And I don't want to be forgotten before I die.
Exactly. Big on that.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy. But yeah, that's that. And just kind of zooming back out to talk about Trump. Trump has also come out and said that he's willing to do the same thing that he's doing in LA with the National Guard and the Marines in other places across the country, saying LA could be, quote, the first perhaps of many, and that protesters could be met with equal or greater force across the country.
Wait, what do you mean equal or greater?
That's what I'm saying.
Or greater.
He's just saying that he wants to escalate. This is why we open the episode talking about the idea that Trump wants to do this. This is just preempting something that he wants to escalate to, and he's seeing what he can get away with. He's constantly pushing the envelope. And again, he has not invoked the Insurrection Act, but this is the closest that he can get to doing it, and he's starting to maybe toy rhetorically with the idea. He was asked, I think, by an ABC reporter this week whether or not he would invoke the Insurrection Act, and he's saying no. But then he goes, I mean, some of these things you're seeing pop up some places you can call insurrection.
Yeah.
Why say that if you're not thinking about making it more broad?
Oh, yeah, he wants to do it. And, Stephen Miller's just fucking waiting.
Oh, he's bricked up thinking about invoking the Insurrection Act. He's bricked up thinking about actually putting live ammunition in these Marines' rounds.
Yeah, no, he's very excited. It's just like saying we're going to meet them with equal or greater force than the ones in L.A. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the ones in L.A. are like, it's like the biggest one because that's where things have ramped up. I don't think that many cities will be able to match the sheer number of people that showed up to what happened in L.A. But saying like, oh, we might meet them with greater force. What do you guys think that portends?
Exactly. Like, oh wow, this sounds like a principled response to a situation that maybe has gotten out of hand that will de-escalate things for sure.
Not good.
Violence begets violence.
It sure does. The cycle of violence. I think we got to move on. Still, of course, related to the immigration protests, ICE protests, and whatnot. But we got to talk about the Democrats.
Yeah, we got to talk about the Democrats. What would we be without talking about the Democrats? I think a big theme of this podcast throughout the show's lifespan, the last almost 4 years, has been the Democrats not being able to ever meet the moment.
Oh, yeah. The first episode title is Joe Biden fumbling the bag. Yes.
And, realistically, I think that he's fumbled the bag in ways that we could not have anticipated with that first episode.
Shit runs deep, man.
Joe Biden, I feel, has laid the groundwork for this. I think that's a discussion for another time, though, that involves more stats, more analysis, but I'm just going to leave that statement out there. But right now, in this current moment, to no one's surprise, the Democrats are still not able to catch a vibe.
Yeah.
Even when it's coming at them, super slow motion, right in front of their face. They cannot grasp onto it. This time, just like, it's not the typical Democrats doing nothing. It's that this week, Democrats went out of their way to do the worst thing that they could have done.
A lot of them, too.
A lot of them. This week, 75 Democrats decided that it was in their best interest to sign a resolution urging more state and local collaboration with ICE.
At this moment, when people are actively being brutalized by police, by ICE, when Donald Trump has sent in the military against a civilian population, you're going to sign on to a resolution that says ICE is actually sick and cool and we love them forever.
I think what the fuck? There was just a poll that came out, I think, yesterday that talked about how, like, immigration was Trump's top issue.
Yeah.
He's now negative 11% on it. People do not like what's going on, and it's because they're being woken up by these protests.
Yeah.
And Democrats decided they thought it would be awesome to sign a resolution, not even a bill that does anything, just like a resolution just to make people feel good. A virtue signal. Yeah. Go out of their way to do it. Two notable Democrats that did this. I think this just went through the House, where Haley Stevens, Michigan state rep, she's important to me because she's running for Senate in Michigan, and I do not want to vote for another Alyssa Slotkin.
No, she's the same as Alyssa Slotkin.
I cannot vote for another Alyssa Slotkin.
Yeah, she should. For doing this, like, of course, Haley Stevens has done bad things before. AIPAC has been her number one donor for a while. But she deserves, like, undying discomfort.
Yeah.
For signing on to some shit like this at a time when protests are about to start happening in Detroit and protests in another city are being met with state violence.
She thought it would be best for her Senate run to go out here and say, I pledge fealty to ICE. In this moment, that's fucked up. And then another notable guy was Tom Suozzi.
Tom Suozzi, baby.
Suozzi, Mr. I don't want my fourth grade daughter having to face an NFL linebacker on the field. We need to get trans girls out of girls' sports.
Yeah, Tom Suozzi just fucking blows. I think Tom Suozzi's the guy who replaced George Santos.
Wow, what a fucking legacy
down,
right
man.
there.
Diva down. But I want to read this resolution for you so you actually get an idea of what we're saying, because it's hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
This resolution at first was introduced as a condemnation of the attack in Boulder, Colorado. Which, to be fair, I condemn political violence.
I do. That wasn't a good thing.
I condemn Hamas. It was a bad thing to do. And so Republicans introduced this, I believe. The first provision in this resolution is condemning that specific attack, which, okay, fine, I condemn it. Everybody should condemn it.
Yes.
The second one, it just ramps up here. Second one's crazy. Third one's crazier. Second one says, quote, affirms that free and open communication between state and local law enforcement and their federal counterparts remains the bedrock of public safety. It is necessary in preventing terrorist attacks. Already getting this. It's like anti-sanctuary city, anti-sanctuary state, and like a little fash.
You're towing a line. You're towing a line.
And then the last one says, expresses gratitude to law enforcement officers, including U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement personnel, for protecting the homeland.
Bouncing on it. Bouncing on it, doing tricks on it, slobbing on it. That shit is glistening after you get off.
The Democratic Party continues to allow the Republican Party to weaponize anti-Semitism to further fascist aims. Like, of course you should condemn this attack that happened in Boulder, Colorado, but why are we allowing them to slip in this thing that, like, I don't know, virtue signals that we're super cool with ICE cracking down on people that are trying to get jobs outside of Home Depot?
Yeah.
We're cool with ICE. We're super grateful to ICE for grabbing people as they try to go to school, or as they walk home from school, or as parents go to pick their kids up from school or attend their kids' graduation from high school. What the fuck are we doing, man? Why do we allow them to keep getting away with this?
Yeah.
It's so cynical, and it's just... Also, how does saying that we love ICE forever and always, like, prevent anti-Semitism?
I'm saying, what do these two things have to do to each other? A real Democrat would have introduced a separate bill that said, I condemn the attack.
Yeah, and, you know, the fact that Democrats have allowed us to get to this point is, like you said, a thing that we could bring up some stats and figures for, and maybe we can talk about that on a future episode, but you really can't understate the level of complicity that Democrats have had in getting us to this point.
Yeah.
Because it was Barack Obama who hired Tom Homan initially, the guy who was Trump's border czar. It was Biden who continued a lot of Trump-era immigration policies. And it is the entire party allowing this sort of rhetorical drift away from the rhetoric that used to be about how America's a melting pot and how immigrants make this country stronger. And now it has been, from Republicans and Democrats, this idea that there is a crisis at the border and that immigrants represent some kind of threat. The fact that Democrats have allowed us to get to this point, both politically in terms of the policy, but also in terms of the narrative, is the reason that Trump feels so bold and is so able to send military personnel against the civilian population.
There was a Gallup poll that I was looking at, I think yesterday, that looked at data from, I think, like 1990s, that showed that from 1996 to 2020, people had become more and more and more and more pro-immigrant, like as like the trend line. And then as soon as 2020 hits, you have a precipitous decline.
Yeah.
As soon as Joe Biden takes power, and he does nothing to really change any of the rhetoric that Trump was having against any of the anti-immigrant rhetoric that Trump was engaging in, he was just aesthetically less abrasive about it.
Yeah.
Joe Biden carried water for the idea that we can get away with running on a platform of mass deportations.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Trump has, Trump's immigration policy this time around has been significantly more violent than last time.
Yeah.
I mean, people didn't even scoff at the travel ban this time. The travel ban, which was more severe than the first one that happened in 2017, because LA is currently being occupied.
Yes.
Like that was the more pressing thing that we needed to pay attention to. And ultimately, you don't get to Stephen Miller's 3,000 deportations a day number without major rhetorical and policy concessions from the Democratic Party. Like if Democrats had maintained the argument that had been sort of building and getting more popular, especially post 2016, that again, America is the land of immigrants. This country was built by immigrants. You fundamentally cannot get to that Stephen Miller number or Trump immigration policy without getting away from that rhetoric. If we stay on that rhetoric and if we stay disciplined, we don't get to this point, I don't think. Or at least it's not as bad as it is now.
Absolutely not. All they had to do was just like be nice.
Be nice, be cool.
Be nice, be cool, be chill.
And the only conclusion I can draw is that Democrats just fundamentally don't care about immigrants. Because
absolutely not. Yeah. Well, I don't think. I think that's just symptomatic of the or endemic of the broader attitude that Democrats have that they shouldn't care about anything. Realistically, they quickly abandoned immigrants. There was so much pro-immigrant sentiment during Trump won because Democrats recognized they could use it as an issue against Trump because he was separating families at the border and putting kids in cages.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they gain power, they just throw it away. Same thing with everything. I mean, the 2020 Democratic primary woke off to the 2024 Kamala Harris saying, about trans people.
Yeah, saying
Nothing.
literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
And then for some reason, people think it's trans people that lost for the election somehow. But like politically, it would be smart if Democrats just offered another narrative. I mean, again, think of the issue of abortion. Democrats do not concede on the issue of abortion.
As they shouldn't.
There is no rhetorical ceding of the ground to the Republican Party on the issue of abortion. We always talk about it through the lens of personal autonomy and personal decision-making, of freedom, right? That's the lens we talk about it through. Whereas Republicans talk about the life aspect, right? This is a person that you're killing and whatnot. Democrats never argue on the grounds of this is an individual. Why don't we try to do that with every other narrative?
No, literally.
It doesn't make any sense.
Because, like, again, with the immigration thing, I don't know why they haven't learned that unless you're to the right of Mitch McConnell, you're a communist to them.
Yeah.
No matter what, you will never out-hate immigrants. And if people hate immigrants because that's the only message that they're hearing, really from the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they're just going to vote for the guy who hates immigrants more and is going to appeal to more of their, like, base desires.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
So bad and stupid, the Democratic Party fumbles the ball once again. Haley Stevens, I have undying hatred for you, and I hope you never live a day of comfort in your life.
I pledge fealty against Haley.
Unless you resign and cede the race to Abdul El-Sayed, then I'll say Haley Stevens is school and based.
Exactly. Yeah. Unless you get to the point where you're looking like you're about to win, and you're like, I can't do this. I have to let my guy Abdul stand up and,
exactly.
and be the nominee.
Yeah,
and
drop
throw
out
all your support behind him.
If you drop out at a critical juncture and endorse Abdul,
yes,
then you will win back my favor.
Yeah, and then never do politics again.
Yeah, unless it's goodly.
Unless it's goodly, true.
Which I don't know that you're capable of, quite frankly. Oh man, you guys don't hate the Democratic Party enough. Anyway, just a couple of things to end off the show here. We sort of already mentioned it, but Trump's military parade is coming up on Saturday. You all might have seen the videos of tanks going along the train tracks. It's gonna obliterate DC streets.
Yeah, I know at least some of you live in DC. Good luck driving next week.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine what that's gonna be like. DC's not big.
No,
it's a very small place
and
geographically.
It's like I don't know if like construction season in DC is as bad as it is here in Michigan with like, you know, the awful roads and whatnot. But good luck. Good luck with all the repairs that are going to need to be done to the roads. $1 million in damages that have been estimated because DC streets are, surprise, surprise, not equipped to have tanks driving on them.
Mm-hmm.
Not ever meant to do that.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to get around. There's literal tanks on the streets. Like, I don't know what you're
fucked. I guess you're not going anywhere Saturday except to the military parade.
Yeah.
I think I had also seen reporting that Trump ordered like 20,000 historical military costumes because
corny alert.
He wants to make soldiers cosplay for his birthday.
It's so fucked up.
Trump wants to dress up grown men for his birthday.
There's another life where Trump is a lot more relatable and cool than he is now.
I saw somebody say he should have been like a red carpet commentator. He could kill it. He's catty.
So good at that. He's really got a talent for it. But that's corny. I don't like it. Also sort of fascist. But it is upsetting that Trump's birthday is on Flag Day.
Yeah.
And he can just get away with doing this.
No, it's the worst. It's like the devil won. You know what I mean?
It's like he was perfectly created by the devil for this all to work out just for him. And it's kind of annoying.
It is annoying. Yeah. It's really annoying. It's like in Paradise Lost, Lucifer just came out on top and created his child and said, "You're going to be born on Flag Day, and this will be relevant one day." Let me tell you, in a couple thousand years. But speaking of the almost fash portion, Trump, when questioned about maybe protesters at his birthday parade this week, said that any protesters will be met with force.
Oh, cool.
He did not make a distinction between peaceful protesters or any rowdy ones whatsoever. He just said protesters will be met with force. Caroline Leavitt was asked about this by reporters. He's like, will peaceful protesters be met with force? And she said, that's a stupid question. That's not
genuinely
that's not even an exaggeration. She said, that's a stupid question. Okay.
Then answer it if it's so stupid and easy.
Yeah, why don't you just let it fly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Saturday's going to be an interesting day.
Very interesting day. Across the country, going to be an interesting day. Lastly, to end on some maybe the most important news, just like globally speaking, that happened this week. But of course, we are more preoccupied with other stuff. Israel might be preparing to strike Iran as these Iran deal negotiations fall apart. So that could be really bad.
Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation.
Born too late to deploy to the Middle East, born too early to deploy to the Middle East, born just in time to be deployed to the Middle East. Everybody get your draft cards updated. If you're an 18-year-old man of able-bodied, get ready to go.
Yes, sir. Desert Storm 2, baby. Come on now. The next Call of Duty is going to be insane. Call of Duty in real life.
I still got metal in my arm, so I'm not going nowhere.
That's right.
We'll be right here in the podcasting chairs, but you all can get deployed to fight on behalf of Israel.
Yeah, I'm an only child, so I'll be here. I'll be here going crazy.
Do you think that, like, there's no way that, like, Israel goes to war with Iran and, like, we deploy American troops to Iran, right? There's no goddamn way. That'd be so funny if Pete Hegseth was like, yeah, we're sending military personnel to fight for Israel against Iran.
We need to fight for the Holy Land. He pulls up with his Jerusalem cross.
Man, that'll be good. The anti-war candidate, though.
I think Pete Hegseth just wants to kill.
No, yeah, he loves death, dude. He loves seeing someone get hurt.
I think he just loves drawing blood. All he talks about is warrior culture. It's ridiculous. He's kind of corny.
Yeah. But anyway, that ends off our episode for today. Everybody, if you're going out to protest this weekend, be safe.
Yes.
Be peaceful. If a cop's going to shoot you with a rubber bullet, try not to get hit.
Try not to get dodged.
Yeah,
buddy.
get out of the way. Hit your ultra instinct and just get out of the way. You know what I'm
it's a little Matrix thing.
So good luck out there if y'all are going out, and be safe. And to end off this episode, we got to thank our patrons.
We got to thank the wonderful people that got us here in the first place.
Beautiful, incredible.
Beautiful, incredible, wonderful.
Thoughtful.
Unique.
Special.
Amazing.
Glorious.
Glorious. Gorgeous.
My real friends. It's these people.
My real friends. I would shake all of your hands right now.
I would die for you.
If you were in the studio. I would die for you. I'd lay my life on the line for you in Israel. So I got to give a special thanks to these people, starting with Caden Kraut, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, Mike Japlinski, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Toro, Tari Fergalaki, Max Vasquez, I can't read today, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Mosey, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Centrum, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsver, Yook, Jennifer DeVoe, Crawfish, and Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benatti, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Ted Cruz's Boy Toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and his Gundams, Darth Father, Taylor Furcacha, Corey Chambers, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ass Smith, The Grottler, Murder in a Trench Coat, Casey Lynn Kelly, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Anna Valitic, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August Particular Pickman, Sir Capalot, Jeff Science, Brenda's Egg, Froggy Gumdrop,
Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Chris T, Kashan Lala, Amanda R, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Particulon, Memfrez, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Booty Snakes, Dew Fairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fitta Hussein, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, Cryobongi, Sergeant Pookie, Hoodie, Kim Kitsaragi, Rose Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Noah Sajas, Maja What, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6-Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, Yaya, Asura the Atheist, Aiden Reese, Deep State Agent, Puddle Pirate, Joshua Franklin, Southern Lefty, Lark61, Just in Time 4, KC, Cannon Man, Troy H, Rark Muffalo, Nahan San. Gage wrote in the phonetic spelling for this name.
Nahan Santiago.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
And Maimon, thank you all so much for supporting the show. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you stay safe if you're going out on Saturday to protest. Multiple things: the oligarchy, the monarch, police brutality, state violence.
No kings in general.
Yeah, I don't fuck with kings.
I don't rock with kings, not one bit.
So,
because realistically, if anybody had the divine right to rule,
I think it's me.
I think exactly. Like
I think it'd genuinely be me. I think I might have been chosen.
I functionally cannot rock with the idea that someone other than me has been ordained by God to lead.
If I got my brain in a vat, I would not think this up.
No, that's how I know. I make my way out of solipsism because I never could have imagined a hell like this.
Yeah, I wouldn't do this to myself. I don't hate myself that much. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great weekend.